I am here with Mr. Christian Hönigschmid, who is the project architect of the Museo del Acero. It's a very good friend. Now it's a bit frozen, but he's there. Yeah, he's there. And
Hello, Carlos.
we are having this very nice Sunday midday conversation, and we're trying to I guess that recollect some of the memories of maybe 15 years ago, Christian, now, even when it's the
yes, 15 yeah.
Anniversary of the museum.
We met and started to work on this project 15 years ago, and then, yeah, 13 years ago it opened.
Yeah, so we are still here, and the idea is to share with the people some of the things that we had as very, very good experiences with this very beloved building for us. Just to make the introductions, Christian is it's the project architect of this building for Grimshaw Architects. By the time he was part of the New York office, now he's based in London, and he was let's say the one of the most important pieces in the team. He also acquired the Mexican nationality for almost a year. He was based here in Monterrey, and we got to be very, very good friends. My name is Carlos Estrada, and I am part of Oficina de Arquitectura, which were the design partner who is with Grimshaw for this project. And we, of course, based here were the architects on site. So we got to learn a lot, and we got to see a lot of things. So one of the main things that we want to share with you is maybe some of these anecdotes and this. Yeah. So let's talk about memories, Christian. And
yeah, let's do this, Carlos.
I got this surprise for you, and you are very aware of what I am about to show, but these are your pictures of the week. So I am going to share my screen, and I am going to show some of the images that you very, very meticulously took for a period of time during the work on site. And I am very sure that these images are going to make us remember a lot of things from 13, 14, 15 years ago. So here I go.
Let's start.
Let's start with this here. Can you see my screen there?
Not yet. Yeah.
There you go.
I was expecting you would pull this up as the first one.
Yeah, I have no plan for this, but that makes the surprise even better, right? Do you remember this thing?
Yeah, of course, right? This was early on when they started to clean the project. So right at the same time where the design that we did for the extension, for the new bits on the museum separately sort of had a cleaning and restoration project going to save whatever was savable from this amazing, yet unfortunately heavily deteriorated structure. And so we kept going to site regularly. And at one point, then we saw these quite brave men climbing up on this huge pipe that connected the blast furnace to the dust collector, right, from the very top of the structure going down, that we're using sort of the existing sort of access ladder where not all steps were left to make their way up, probably weld on a few other ones for safe access, and then clean and coat the existing structure to sort of protect it better for the years to come.
Very important.
None of us was as brave.
No, but you were. There's something that is very important to remember, and is that Mr. Christian here at, I don't know if you lost that, but you weren't that confident on heights.
Oh yeah. No, I didn't want to necessarily share this right away.
And I am going to use this tool. So if you see the yellow line here, we are at 40 meters above the ground. So even when Christian wasn't going all the way up here, we were here when this wasn't even prepared for visitors. So you're talking about how brave these guys were, and of course I completely respect that. But you were also a part of. I mean, we even go to this part on the top. Do you remember?
Yeah, there were steps missing on the way.
Yes, and today I wouldn't do it, not at all. For $1 million, I wouldn't do it. But 15 years ago, yeah, I was brave. Now I am not that brave anymore.
Yeah, there are photographs, maybe even included in here, of me doing this, and I'm like, in hindsight, I can't believe that I did this. But maybe at that point we were all a bit more adventurous, and yeah, the structure had so much just intrigue and mystery, but also just greatness to it. I think we all sort of felt we need to explore it. We need to make it to the very top.
Another interesting thing to notice here, if you look at the date in the image, we can see this is August of 2006. So this was just a little bit less of a year from opening day. Yeah. So that shows something that's very important to mention, is that we were able to do this project in very, very short period of time.
Yeah. In total, it took 2 years and 2 months.
Exactly.
Right? It opened in September, and we had won the commission in, must have been in July of, it opened in September of 2007.
Yes.
And we won the commission together with you, right, and your partners from ODA in July of 2005.
Exactly. And one of the first steps in construction precisely is what's shown in these pictures. While we were detailing and developing the design, one of the first things that had to be done on site was to restore and to preserve the integrity of the steel structure. So
but also to secure it.
Of course. You have to remember that this wasn't. This was an industrial installation, not intended to be visited by people or children or
or crazy architects.
Or crazy architects, but it happened.
You can see sort of the skeleton of the cast hall, right? So the former cladding was already taken off, or even at the bottom of the main photograph, right? At the beginning, right, when we encountered the project, right, the whole cladding of the cast hall was still there, but it was quite heavily deteriorated. And in the beginning, we thought we can maybe salvage it, maybe we take it down, and then use it again to after we sort of upgraded it, added a proper envelope, reuse it, but we then learned that it was deteriorated beyond salvation. Right, so this all was taken off and then cleaned, and then we sort of, even along the way, we had sort of to change the design to adapt to the existing conditions.
Very good. Yeah. I remember that at some point we had this idea that could have a completely different result. I guess that the result it's still proving to be a very good decision in terms of the system and the solution that was provided. So I'm going to jump for the next picture. Can you see this?
Yes.
All right.
Yes. So the main picture on the left-hand side, the big one, is on the quite high up on the blast furnace, which is sort of now one of the main levels, where the ore elevator is bringing up visitors. And this was already after quite some cleaning and coating happened. And right when we initially encountered it, the project, the steel structure was not only heavily deteriorated, but covered in a lot of dirt, right? Not just, I think, from the pollution of the city, but just as from the byproduct from the original process while it was still in operation. So we didn't, at the beginning, we didn't see any of this color, right? This was all sort of revealed all the time of the cleaning, of the renovation, and we were all just taken away, right? Because from the original structure, there were only some color photographs. Most photographs were in black and white. So I think maybe just a few of us knew how much color there would be, how much color there was, and after all these years, how much color there would still be. So it was a really great discovery. And it made for much more, or it makes now for much more sort of lively and vibrant structure.
There was throughout the project, throughout the construction process, there was this. Do you remember Elisa, Christian?
Yeah, of course.
Elisa Rubalcaba. She was the let's say the guardian of the structure. She is a restoration architect, so her role was to provide some guidance on the elements and agree with the design idea of what to do with the existing. And that's something that I always comment to the students when I take them to visit the museum, and is that there could have been many other ways to approach the restoration or the reuse of the building. And one of these approaches would have been to bring back the building to its original splendor. If we had done that, then we would have a bright orange structure just sitting in the park. It definitely could have been a very different effect. Yeah, because the original color, I mean, the photograph we are looking at, it's a building with almost 20 years of operation and almost 20 years of abandonment. But the thing is that in its best days, the day this furnace opened, it was bright orange. It's very difficult to imagine that, because as you mentioned, Christian, there are only black and white pictures. So. And that brings me back to the fact that in 1968, color wasn't yet in the world, right? I mean, color was invented in the early 70s, right? Before that, the world was completely black and white, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, the TV I grew up with was just black and white, so the world must have been black and white. No, okay. But I mean, I think the path that we, I mean, if I say we, I'm not just us as the architects, but we as sort of the project team together with the client, with Luis, with Raul, and with Elisa took was more about preservation than restoration. So that what we encountered, what we found, that we tried to preserve as much as possible, because right in and of itself, it told the story of a rough industrial facility that had been 20 years in operation, right? And during that time, of course, has seen, I don't know, abuse, sheer deterioration. And then after the unfortunate closure of the steel mill, right, the structure was fenced off and lay dormant and deteriorated for another 20 years before then this project came about. So yeah, I mean, we discovered the railroad tracks, we reused that. And I mean, I think for people from Monterrey, this is the photograph on the bottom right, I think is something for us coming from New York, always a great surprise. I think for people in Monterrey, this is of course very, very, very common. Everyone knows this building, the park. A lot of families or parents of younger people had worked there, right? So this, though it was heavily deteriorated, lost a lot of its initial glory, it had a very strong and fond place in the heart and the minds of the people of Monterrey. And whenever we went, we saw people there taking photographs, taking wedding photographs in front of this rusted behemoth. And I mean, this gave us a lot of inspiration, but I think also sort of how to say this, support, right? To create something really unique, to technically, with this project, not only create a new museum, right, that has evolved into a science institution over this time, but to also give this back to the community, right, to the former steel workers and their families, the next generation, right, which was the lifeblood of Monterey for such a long time, and where people, right, that had worked there hadn't been able to go back for 20 years. And that had always filled us, the architects from Grimshaw who worked on it, with great pride that we were able to participate in such a great project.
And as you mentioned, Christian, I think that for people from Monterey, it's a very important part of its heritage, and it's widely acknowledged as something like that. I mean, people is proud to visit the park, and it's proud to make these photographs with the building, with the industrial buildings in the background. And yes, just as you are mentioning, we were every day witnessing how important for people is this part and what we were doing. So we felt obliged to really deliver. Now, on the other hand, if you look at this picture, this is a very nice picture because this is what we call the cast hall, and this image is almost dematerialized. I mean, there's almost none of the presence of the building that is now there, right? I mean, this is a very
skeleton.
Yeah, a very interesting moment in time when this structure, which is here, it wasn't still there. In order to make it, we had to make them disappear, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I'm going to jump to the next one. I told you that we were going to remember a lot of things.
Oh, hello, Rodrigo.
Is there?
It's nice of you to join.
Hi, Christian. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
Okay, well, Rodrigo, please introduce yourself as part of the team.
Okay, in English?
Everything has to be in English.
Everything has to be in English.
We tried Japanese at the beginning. Didn't work.
I'm Rodrigo Maisterrena. I'm part of the design team for Museo 3 as part of Oficina de Arquitectura that worked with Grimshaw from New York, with Herr Christian Hönigschmid and Carlos Estrada, and a very big team that was involved here. So how long have you been doing this?
Almost 15 minutes. We decided that we would just use the pictures of the week, and that the pictures would just trigger our memories. And so far, it's been working very nicely, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this. I mean, I am going to start with this picture in the upper left, on the upper right, because this tells a lot about, you were talking about preserving rather than restoring, and these pair of columns are very important, delivering the message of what we did with the building. This is an existing column, and this is, of course, one of the columns for the new structure. And again, and that's very important. Rodrigo and I are both professors, and we take students at least 2 or 4 groups per semester to the museum. And for me now, it's a tradition to start looking at these 2 columns, because in the end, this column was just installed, but in the end, it was painted black. And all the elements in the building, when you visit it, remember that, all the elements in the building which are painted black belong to the new intervention. So in this case, and that's of course what we would call a happy accident, right? But these 2 columns in the main lobby of the building are telling the story of the intervention. I mean, it's like the, let's say, the approach to the adaptation of the building and the respect for the existing, while making the gesture of I wouldn't say imitating, but almost repeating the structural language of the building. So again, when you visit, when all this crazy pandemic ends, please go to the building and take a look at these two columns, and you will see that this one is, let's say, preserved to its orangey, deteriorated color, and this is bright black. And these two columns together are one is saying I belong to the past, and the other is saying I belong to the present and to the future. So that's been always very, very symbolic for me. That's why I wanted to talk about this picture. And I will leave you to talk about the pictures below, Christian. These are very interesting.
Yes, as architects, I think scale is almost important, right? Getting a sense of scale. And on one of our site visits, we encountered this mysterious creature where I thought it would be sort of a bit sort of as a sort of, I don't know, humoristic turn on the fauna of Nuevo León, of Monterrey, to put the two of us in that picture to give a proper sense of scale of this monstrous creature that we encountered. I was trying to feed it. I'm the person on the left, and Carlos could just not be bothered and continued with his sidewalk as usual.
In fact, I think that the person in the right is Mr. Bill Corgan.
Oh, it's Bill. I thought it was you.
No, it's Bill Corgan. He looked a lot fatter than myself, but that was back in the day. I don't want to be seen besides him anymore.
Yeah, I was also more skinny at that point.
So yeah, Bill Corgan was what, the partner in charge of this project?
Yeah.
What was his role? And he is a very, very funny Englishman, and he is also a very brilliant architect, and it's always a pleasure to have a conversation with him. Normally, Christian and Bill would come to visit. Before Christian established himself for a good 8 months in Monterrey, you were doing visits maybe once a month, right? More or less.
Yeah, once a month, once every 2 months or so, yeah.
So it was very, very common to have Mr. Corgan on site, making sarcastic comments on the work of everybody and laughing himself in the inside without letting anyone notice that. So this is a photograph of the main structure in what we call the Entrance Pavilion. It's where with this a crane is parked, is where you enter into the building. If you, this picture is looking west, and as you can see here in this part, this is like the wall of the sloped garden that it's sitting in this part of the museum. Yeah, remember that this is a museum of steel, so steel structures were the main constructional system, and important to say that most of the steel was fabricated and brought to site from San Luis Potosí. The main contractor for the structure was Pilería San Luis, a company which was very well equipped for this type of job, because they are specialists in building tanks. So they have all this technology to do the welding, and in the next pictures we are going to maybe remember some of these things, Christian. Rodrigo, do you have anything to say about this?
Not yet.
Okay, very well. So I'm going to jump to the next one.
Yeah, so this shows a few aspects of the project. So in the background, we see the advancements of the steel framing of the entrance pavilion that we saw in the earlier picture. There's still the same crane continued to erect it. And in the foreground of the larger picture, we see the foundation of the steel gallery, one of similar to the entrance pavilion, one of the complete new buildings that we added on the west of the building, on the west of the cast hall. You see sort of this depression there. In the end, the actual floor finish is on top, just above the top of the concrete pedestals, because we used this base underneath the floor as a plenum, through which we provided sort of the fresh air, the ventilation for that gallery, right? Because we came up with a great design for the ceiling of it, so we didn't want to put any large infrastructure, any ducts in the ceiling, so we supplied the air through the floor. You also, at the central pedestals, you see sort of pipes, white pipes sticking out. We collect the rainwater from the green roof that sits on top of the steel gallery, and we drained that through those central columns. It then went to a cistern, and it's reused on site. So already back then, we tried to implement quite a few green or let's say sustainability design measures in the project. In the bottom row of pictures, you see mock-ups, test installations for the cladding of the cast hall with the large panels where we came up with the detail that allowed the installation at various angles. So though in its final state, these large louver panels are fixed, but because we created sort of a movement across the facade by having these panels sort of installed in slightly different angles, then over the course of the day, as the sun is passing over the building, it sort of starts to animate the facade quite nicely. And on the right, you see sort of a large number of color samples, right? The final finish was very important to us in the background of me. You see sort of one of the photographs of the completed cast hall, which just has a really nice glow at sunset. So this is achieved through a metallic finish on those panels, and we needed to do quite a few rounds to get sort of exactly that color and this metallic finish right.
This is a very interesting thing to comment, because we were lucky to have a very good client who understood the value of having these mock-ups produced, which in Mexico is not very normal for people to accept that you have to have the really touch and feel of things. And even at this stage, you could make some design decisions and slightly adjust or change some of these things. In this case, I have to say that the design was very strong, and that we had a very good contractor, Hugo Schiaffino, who was the contractor for these panels as well as the yellow stair, was very good with a very good sensibility of the detail. So basically, when he produced these mock-ups, there was already a process before of reviewing and discussing and changing and adopting some new ideas. So these mock-ups, rather than being a sample of the work, are a very powerful design adjustment tool. And I think that it's a very, very well invested money, because we could test things, we could test how they would perform, and not wait until they were installed. But we could do this even in a very controlled situation. So there were many adjustments and finer detailing that happened after we had these pieces built. And then in the bottom right, there was, I don't think that we have these photographs, but I remember that at some point we had this meeting with the construction manager about this selection of the black color for the columns. Do you remember that, Christian?
Oh yeah, really, really well. We had eight samples of black.
There were 8, even before the movie, right? There were 8 shades of black. And these shades of black, of course, all of the architects were perfectly capable of detecting the differences, the subtle differences of these tones of black, which engineers, I reckon, have this, I don't know, color blindness for black, because they couldn't identify the different tones and hues that the black color can provide. So we were told from the general management, guys, you are crazy. I mean, the only thing we're looking at is one black color, and we were not. You are crazy, because this is darker, this is deeper, this is, and we could
more shiny.
Yeah.
This is less reflective. Yeah.
So, but these are very, very important, because and the thing is, it was not only to have these samples, but to put these samples the closest we could to where they would finally be used, in order to see how these would react to the light or to the colors around, etc., etc., etc. So again, it was a lot of fun, because not the mock-ups or this amount of samples to approve. It's a very common practice in our construction industry. It's getting there, but it's a lot of fun for us. Okay, so I'm going to.
Do you remember the raw color, Christian?
You remember
the raw code of the color?
The RAL code.
No. Do you?
9011.
Okay.
Yes, just to add a little bit more on these pictures. On the top one, as you were mentioning, we have an elevated plenum, or a plenum below the floor. And I remember talking with the engineers that we didn't need any heating for this area, because since it was underground, well, it's not underground, we have the green roof, and pretty well insulated. Basically, in winter, with the lights of the display, would be enough to keep this warm with lights and the people. So we didn't need any heating for this. We only needed air conditioning for most of the time. But it was a really nice solution. It was something that was never done in Monterrey. I don't know if Mexico, but in Monterrey, displacement ventilation was a new thing. And we've had a really hard time with the local contractors trying to convince them that this was the way to go. We had a lot of issues on them trying to telling us that it will be easier, faster, and cheaper to install the conventional system. But well, that will involve a lot of more tonnage of air conditioning, and in the long term, the cost of operation will have been even bigger. So we had a long fight with that, and finally we set this, and it's been working quite well. I understand from conversations with people in operations that there are houses in certain areas of Monterrey that spend more energy cooling than the museum. So it's a very good system, the one that was implemented.
Yeah.
Just to take that note from Rodrigo, the air conditioning equipment is sitting right here in this basement, and this opening you are looking at here is the entrance for some ducts which go like this, something like this. I mean, you don't have to take the duct all the way to the outlet. So the ducts are here, and then the whole space operates as a an enclosed chamber, what we call a plenum, and there are openings on the floor from where the air conditioning just go up. Okay, as you can see, I have become a master in drawing with annotate from Zoom. Okay.
And another note on the louvers, because there was a discussion on a meeting on having those being electrically operated so that could move, because we will have the system, the DMX system that was going to be used for the show, that could control all of these little actuators that could move the louvers, but there were around 1,300 motors that will need to be installed, plus the cabling control, etc. So that idea lasted just about 5 minutes on discussion, after saying, well, we'll move manually those louvers once a year too, so that they change the appearance. And it hasn't been done anytime, but it was in the discussion.
But I think the effect that these just gently rotated panels create is still impressive, right? That it helps to break down the scale of the building, right? Of this quite large cast hall, but also just to animate it nicely over the course of a day, right? So you can achieve a dynamic looking building without having movable parts on the facade.
Absolutely.
By just letting the sunlight doing its magic.
Very nice. I will go to the next one. This is very much maybe a month later than the last one, and of course they're mounting the outer ring of the roof. This is pretty much let's say standard steel structure. Some of the pieces that you are looking at in this image are part of the exhibition inside, which, by the way, we have to comment, this is the exhibition of the museum was made by Aldrich Peirce, and this is a firm from Canada who are specialists in this type of projects. We had a very good collaboration with them. We had I think that a very interesting process with them, since we had to compromise some of the ideas that they had envisioned for the visitors' experience, and we wanted also the building to be part of this visitor experience. So there were constant negotiations with them, and I guess that they were also very, let's say, intelligent to understand the value of the building. And of course there are some other things that we weren't really much in agreement, but we always had we always found a way of dealing with them. For example, this thing here, I don't know if you, Rodrigo, or Christian, remember what is this?
It's for a set of rollers.
Rollers.
Yeah, the rollers on the floor, and the idea is to like exhibit. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Carlos.
And and this area has a very, I mean, the design of the floor of this area was done to the very last millimeter, because on top of this there were a ton of all the exhibition displays and pieces which had to be very carefully mapped and placed, because there were the air conditioning outlets and the electricity and the power and everything had to be coordinated. So when you are doing a building like this, there's a lot of work to be done between what's the building itself and what is going to be attached to this building. So in this case, Rodrigo was very much involved in this coordination. What can you tell us about that, Rodrigo?
Well, in this coordination with Aldrich and the exhibition, during the construction, there was a shift in the technology. We had set all this equipment for the exhibitions, because there was going to be a central control room that right now I think is the one of the security rooms that they use to monitor things. But in those times with the iMac, a little Apple computer that came out, and it was easier and cheaper to have that little mini computer on each exhibition to control the exhibition than to have all the routing of cables and controls to that control room. So many of the conduits and installations that we had there were not used at the end. But it was everything was controlled from the floor, on the roof also, that we have all this illumination and projectors. And it was quite a challenge to review each of the exhibition modules and the needs it had to see how to solve it in the space. Because even if you remember, we have a discussion with the floor finish, if it was going to be steel plate or not. So that had to be considered also.
I didn't want to go into that discussion because it brings me back very painful memories. But the jokes aside, is that there's this plastic floor with the appearance of a non-skid metal floor, and we remember that, Chrissy. So we lost that battle, but someday this.
Some battles we lost, some we won.
Exactly. Choose your battles.
Okay, next one. Let's see what this surprise brings us.
Well, it sort of looks like two
the stair is
circular spaces. In the upper space, eventually the stair would sit. The well-known, beloved yellow stair that connects the ground floor to the main upper floor, the level of the cast hall. Right. So the white structure is the level of the roof, and on the bottom, this is sort of more of a panoramic shot, so it's slightly distorted, is the circular space of the already much discussed steel gallery with the plenum floor, where now almost all steel structure is complete, right? So most of the steel structure in the end is hidden, and the key architectural features of the stair and the tessellated roof of the steel structure of the steel gallery are not there yet. So this is still sort of just the skeleton of the future building, of which not much in the end is visible.
Yeah, important to notice here again. I want you to take a look. This is just 1 week later than the last one, and we started this conversation by saying that the building was. I mean, we as a team did this project in a little bit more than 2 years, but that's from design and construction, which meant that construction was happening really, really fast, and that required a lot of attention from ourselves. So I mean, it's a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of stress because I mean things are on a clock and the clock.
Moving fast. I think a lot of us put a lot of love and blood and sweat in, plus of course a lot of extra hours. So I keep saying, yes, this project was completed in 2 years, in 2 months, but I feel like I worked 4 years on it. Yeah. But I felt every day was worth it. And yeah, as you said, once it was inside, it kept moving really fast. So the progress that we could see at a great pace was really, really encouraging.
It was a fast track within a fast track.
Yeah. Very important to notice that now that Rodrigo said that you have to choose your battles. In this case, the structure we are looking at in the foreground, it's like the very basic structure for the steel gallery, and that we knew that it wasn't going to be visible. So we have to remember one thing, and we are very proud about this. I mean, the building was done in a very short period of time, but it was also done on budget, which meant that we didn't get crazy with crazy architectural ideas, but we knew that we had to invest very wisely where we wanted the very nice features of the building, and in the others we would just use very simple and standard steel construction details and types. So I think that that's one of the most important lessons for us, was that we had to be sure to select the right things where we could really put all the eggs, as we say here in Mexico, and then the next we had to make it in the most economical way possible. I'm going to jump to the next one.
Yes, let's look at the next one.
I'm remembering a talk with, I believe it was David Langdon, person from David Langdon, that he mentioned that typically a museum takes from 4 to 6 years from conception, design to construction, at least between 4 to 6 years, and we were doing all of this in 2 years. So he was quite impressed with what we wanted to achieve in time, because we had a deadline before the forum. We have to finish before the forum, that was, I believe, in August or September, and we wanted to have our soft opening and training before that, so that everything was running smooth for that forum. And just a question, Christian, how long did it take to do the Foster aquarium that were involved also? Just recently inaugurated.
So the project I then did after this museum was another museum which also included an aquarium. This was in Miami, in Florida. We won this competition a few months before our beloved Museo de Acero was completed. And we worked on this just a couple of months shy of 10 years. So 5 times as long as Museo de Acero.
Yeah, it's another scale and level of detail also on finishes, but something like this requires a lot of planning and a lot of work and coordination.
Yeah. So what we can see here is the cast hole. The skeleton, the original structure, already had been cleaned and protected. You can make out some of the original orange paint on the large columns. The new roof cladding is going in, right? So it's taking on again a more volumetric expression rather than the sort of naked skeleton. And on the right side, we can see I think it's one of the stoves on the top, still in its original heavily deteriorated status. And on the bottom, then sort of the testing of a few coatings, might be on the top of the dust collector, or one of the other smaller ones. Right, you can see the white text. So we tested, I think, at least those 3. Right, again, for us as architects, together with the team from the client, right, around Elisa, who we mentioned earlier, right, it was very important to again achieve a couple of things. On the one hand, right, of course, protect the structure, preserve it as much as possible, but also protect it from the next 20 years, right, of further deterioration. Right, but by finding the right coating, and it needed to be multiple layers to be effective enough to still preserve some of the texture or liveliness of the deteriorated structure, right? Not just give it a fresh coat of paint, but preserve some of the rich, grimy, rusty history. And yes, you clearly see there's a strong difference between the original unprotected one and the new. But I think in the end, again, it was, right, with us trying to achieve multiple things, it was about finding a compromise. Right? Carlos and Rodrigo mentioned about compromises, that we sort of agreed on with the exhibit designers, and here it was sort of in the end also a compromise on what product we would use. But I think it lent the final coating that we selected lent a quite strong character to the facility.
The thing is that I mean we have witnessed that I mean the sun here in Monterrey is unforgiving, and it just eats up the whatever coating you apply. It's really aggressive and it burns, and it even when you have the building just like recently painted at any building, just in a couple of months the sun can make it look very, very different. I guess that one of the most correct decisions we did in this project was, and it took a while, Christian. I think that it took like 3 months or so just to get the right formulation for the finishing of the paint. And again, there were these endless conversations about why are you taking that long to select this, and we have been proven right. I just have noticed in this photograph that we can see a comet here. Can you see this?
Yeah.
My goodness, I wasn't afraid. It's either a UFO or a comet.
Just in time for Christmas.
Yeah. So maybe Santa.
Yeah, I mean, I think. I mean, we mentioned this already, right? That we worked with other teams, and of course, we had in certain cases discussions with the client. We did not necessarily agree on everything at the beginning, but we always felt, in the long run, that the client really supported us, right? Because we had this common goal, and gave us the room, allowed us to test out these things that, as you mentioned, in certain cases took not just a few days or weeks, but even months, right? But we had sort of collectively, right, also with the construction manager team, sort of planned this well, right, in order to have the time to test out these things.
Absolutely. Let's move to the next one.
One of the things that we were testing, or we wanted to test, if you remember.
This is again. This is the entrance hall. Now it's got its roof being put on. What you see on the left hand is the second floor of this entrance pavilion. At some point, these spaces were used as classrooms. Then there were offices. Then they were storage, and that leads me to this idea now. These days we are living now, which are making buildings to prove themselves to be flexible enough to adapt for change. And I think that one story of success for this building, Christian, is that so far it has been able to adapt to many things. I mean, just as we were discussing before starting this recording, I mean, the institution has been alive and thriving for the last 13 years.
Yeah.
And I guess that one of the secrets for its success is that it has a building, a facility that allows for change to accommodate, right? And I guess that in a way it's a good sign for the future, because I know that hard times are coming for museums or cultural spaces that can't really move or can't do really much about how these spaces are used. So I think that
I think, right, the best projects, right, if designed well, I think provide this, right, if you work, if you have the right architects and engineers on it. But I think the success of the institution, again, is also a testament to the client, to the institution, how they have been evolving, reinventing themselves, adding spaces, adding programs to the building, always from the beginning, and I think probably have grown this ever since, their community outreach program, right? And with that have proven very successful. I think also resilient in already earlier, maybe let's say problematic phases for a museum, right? After the initial opening, after 3-4 years, a lot of museums suffer from a drop of the visitation numbers. I understand that the museum always had succeeded their expectations in visitation numbers. We're sharing them not only in the few years, but after 10 years, sort of with great excitement with us. So I think, yes, I mean, we all hope, right, that we architects in our business, but also this institution, sort of weathers this current crisis and comes out stronger.
Yeah. I think it's a very good challenge for the profession, but also very good challenge for these type of institutions. The image on the right, it's a little bit about, let's say, a more classical approach to restoration. In this case, the bottom part of the column that you are looking at here, it's reconstructed with bricks that we found all over the place. I think that we salvaged, I don't know, like 3,000 or 4,000 bricks, which were part of the process, and we very early in the design decided that the best idea was to keep all the materials coming from construction site and just putting it somewhere, because we could find a way to use them, right?
And they were not just regular bricks,
yeah,
right? There were high-fired refractory bricks. What was the correct one?
Yeah, refractory bricks.
Yeah, right. That had enclosed those steel columns during the operation of the building, right? Right, being a blast furnace, right? Really hot molten steel that flow through the building, right? So to protect the steel structure, right, which could, well, at some point technically melt, but even like form, to protect it from the heat of the industrial process, they used these special bricks that were sort of fired at a very high temperature, much higher than usual bricks. So they protected the building from the heat during the operation. We then reinstated them, right, to in certain places not only maintain but reinstate the original character, but right also serve a new purpose as the fire protection for the columns, right? So again, as we could do something great for the new purpose, for the new function of the building with the existing materials that we found on site.
And can you hear me?
You have to speak louder.
Oh, sorry. And if you remember, all of this was kind of like this area, especially of the gas hole on the ground floor and the level above. It was kind of like digging Pompeii, which we were taking off layers of materials that we were pounding. First the sand, and then there was this brick layer that above this brick layer they did the canals for the flow of the iron, and between this floor, brick floor, and the bottom of the slab, there was around, in certain places, around 1.5 meters, almost 2 meters of sand, and all that was used to protect from the heat the structure below. Later on, that space that we found between the floor and the ceiling, we placed there the mechanical room for the show. But all of this, we have pictures of the excavation, and basically you can walk standing on the roof of the first floor, but it was the floor of the casting hall. So we were finding things along or excavation, so it was a remembrance of how it was in Pompeii when they found it, and they were taking off layers and layers of sand and ash.
Yeah.
It was quite interesting.
I mentioned that we recovered like 4,000 bricks, but I don't think that we used them all, Christian. So I'm going to ask if they have them, because these are great for pizza ovens. Mm-hmm.
They were not used in the restaurant?
I don't know. I don't think so. But yeah, I mean, this type of brick can resist, but it can also hold a very, very high temperature for a long time. So it's just ideal for a pizza oven. I will ask.
Yeah, check with Luis.
Yep. I mean, we deserve it, right? We deserve them.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, the last one. It's like there are like 6 or 7, well, 8 images here. So it's the last 8 images we are going to talk about. So, Mr. Christian.
Wow. So this is a range of things, right? The largest one is probably from the main level of the blast furnace, right, which is in and of itself the tallest structure right behind me here. Looking down at the new portions, right? But yeah, this was earlier, exactly, right? So the steel structure has just started to get erected for the entrance pavilion. There's no steel structure yet for the steel gallery in place. On the right, we see again photographs of mock-ups of examples that we built for the glass facade, right? Carlos already talked in length about the benefit of testing assembly ideas, not only to decide on a color, but to test the assembly, how it is fabricated, how it is installed, right? How this all in aggregate looks and performs. Right, we had to enclose, right, the original cast hole or large parts of this facility were open, right, open to the environment. So they were maybe covered sort of to protect areas from rain, but to ensure sort of just ventilation. A lot of these spaces were open. So we needed to enclose a lot of area. And while the cast hole became sort of like a black box to be able to house the special effects furnace show, the lower areas were enclosed in a glass facade, right? But as Carlos mentioned, right, the light intensity in Monterey at that latitude is very high. It's around 5 to 8 times higher than in New York. So yes, this was very different for us to work with first architects from New York, from Central Europe. So it's as important as it is to bring daylight into the building. It's also to you need to somewhat shade the space, so at least reduce sort of the light intensity, or as we call it, the glare, right? So you look here at the exterior of the facade with the glass being on the rear side and a louver screen on the outside. The idea here is you work with a kit of parts with a limited number of components that can be then repeated to accommodate various conditions of the existing fabric. I don't know, Carlos, maybe, well, Rodrigo, you, because you have the blast furnace in the background. Do you want to talk about the fourth image from the bottom row ones?
Well, the fourth image is to look from the bottom of the blast furnace to the top, and you can see a set of valves that let in the material when it was carried all the way to the top. Now we had access to the tour of the furnace due to what we call a happy accident. where basically when the furnace was closed, it was the fire was doused by putting in thousands and thousands of tons of coal. So it's like when you're starting a fire for a barbecue and you put too much of something and you just kill the fire. That's how they killed that fire. So the specialist, the security specialist, said that, well, in the show we were going to be using fire and sparks, so there was a high probability that we could start again the furnace with all that coal within there. So we had to open the side of the furnace. We saw that we evaluated if it could be done from the top, so that we didn't need to touch the furnace, but it was easier to make a hole on the bottom, and that's how you can get into the furnace now. The section that was taken out from the side is now a part of the landscape on the outside, and it's the only, I believe it's the only furnace that you can go in as well as a tourist or as a guest, and you can see how it works. But it was
the space is really impressive.
It's really
It is
impressive.
almost something. I mean, it feels like an industrial cathedral. It's a very, very unique space, and as Rodrigo said, it was a happy discovery, right? We did not intend to make it to make the interior of the blast furnace, of this big cylindrical element, part of the museum story, accessible to visitors, right? But then we needed to clean it, and then we had this fantastic space, and started to, again, along the way, adjust our design to allow also visitors to experience this unique space that, of course, was inaccessible during the operation of the facility.
Once we got that space, since if you remember the show area, it was just at the beginning, it was only show. It didn't have any other purpose. And as architects, we proposed to be used for other things, for concerts, weddings, conference, and so on, because we recover basically all the castle for different events. And having that, they start to have ideas of that area could be the bridal room, for the room for the bride, and another one said it could be full of wine, that we could use it for wine. And there's a lot of ideas that people just threw in, but well, thankfully it's just a space for anyone can go in and appreciate that space.
Very good. Moving on to the next one and the last one of our series, and I guess it's a nice one. I mean, the picture, I guess that it complies a lot of what we've been discussing during this very nice chat, and I think there's a lot to be discussed. Maybe next year we can continue this conversation, but I guess that it's just like the last piece of the pie, no? Where we were very happy to work with this very impressive structure, with this space, which has become a very important part of the life of Monterrey, and it was a very, very good opportunity to learn about construction, to learn about design, to learn about how things are done. And the most important part of it is that having had the experience of working with a very talented team, and and having worked with a very, very good client who is still very much interested in our, let's say, our collaboration as part of having this building as successful as it is. So, Christian, can you just share with us some last words about this this very nice chat we had shared in this Sunday?
Right. I mean, we mentioned a few other designers that we worked with, right? Structural engineers, facade engineers, sustainability designers, a range of specialists, in addition to the exhibit design and restoration team. And years after we completed this museum, right, I still hear other people fondly talking about the project, the great time they had working on this, right? I mean, it was a team of international designers and engineers. A lot were based in New York, but even in Europe. And it was a special project. I think we'll always keep a special project in our portfolio, but also in our hearts. From the first time we came there, we were greeted with an amazing hospitality, not only from you guys, but the client. Showed around great places, great restaurants, great tequila bars in Monterey. I came to learn and love the country to this day. I love tequila and mezcal and Mexican cuisine, which is so much richer and more amazing than I think a lot of people outside of Mexico realize. I love coming back. The client invited us to come give a lecture at the 10th year anniversary, something I never experienced, and I probably never will experience again in my architectural career. Having completed such a project with such a grateful client is something very unique and special. And I consider myself lucky that it happened once. Might happen another time, but yeah, there's so much special about the project, about the people who worked on it, who we worked with. Right, even 13 years later, we fondly remember great anecdotes and stories. So I hope the institution weathers the current crisis, and maybe in another 13 years, all of us with more gray hair might still remember some anecdotes which we hadn't shared with anyone else before.
Very good. Rodrigo, some last words?
No, I'm very grateful to have worked in this project. I think that it raised the bar to a lot of people here in Mexico on how they work and the quality of the work. But the thing that I liked the most was the friendships that we made, and we still have. And hopefully we will get to work again in another project.
Very nice. So happy birthday, Museo, and I hope you enjoyed this material. We really enjoyed ourselves remembering all this. Bye bye.
Feliz cumpleaños.
Feliz cumpleaños. Bye bye bye.
Feliz cumpleaños. Bye.